Hello everyone, welcome in. My name is Annabelle. I'm the founder of Melanin Gamers, a gaming company that promotes D&I and video games industry. Today, I have a host of amazing speakers around this virtual roundtable to talk about everything to do with Stop Cyberbullying Day, because it's Stop Cyberbullying Day. And so we are going to be discussing toxicity in gaming and how enhancing player experience and retention. That's the topic of the day, and I'm going to go around the virtual roundtable so everyone can introduce themselves. Alan, I'll start with you.
What's going on, my people? My name is Alan from Melanin Gamers. My role is to do the event coordination and also panel curation for Melanin Gamers, including this one. So I'm really excited to talk about something that is near and dear to my heart, especially on a day like this.
Caroline, if we go with you next.
Sure. Yeah, I'm Carolyn. I am Director of Product at GGWP, and we make anti-toxicity and moderation solutions. And our goal is to ensure that players can have fun and enjoy the games that they play without worrying about being harassed, bullied, and experiencing toxicity.
Perfect. Thank you. And Michael, last but not least.
Hey everyone, my name is Michael Latt. Been a gamer for around like 35 or 36 years now. Involved with product marketing for around 19. I've worked in several areas of trust and safety for about 7 years between being an actual moderator and working on the product side and marketing side for moderation solutions.
Perfect. Thank you. That's a very strong panelist that we have here. And as I said, we are talking about dismantling toxicity in the gaming industry. So the first, I want to go to you, Carolyn, at GGWP and talk about the financial impact of toxicity.
Yeah, and I think personally, I feel kind of gross harping on the financial impact, but it is a reality. And I think it's important to acknowledge that while I think we all in this room believe it's the right thing to do to address the problem, it's also a huge business issue. And this is, I think, we're in a good position of power because it's one of those situations where the right thing to do is aligned with the right thing to do business wise as well. Just kind of high level, what we typically see, and it varies from game to game, but a typical churn rate due to toxicity is around 20%. And that's like a typical number that we see with games, depending on what moderation solution they have or may not have in place. So 20% average churn due to toxicity. And then looking even higher up the funnel, we see in survey data that 40% of gamers say they won't even try a game if they think it's going to be overly toxic. So yeah, huge. I mean, we're talking about millions of dollars, huge business impact. And yeah, especially if the issue isn't addressed in a timely manner, because it is something that can kind of compound, and toxicity breeds toxicity. So getting a handle on it sooner rather than later is really key.
That's very true. In terms of the financial impact for businesses, toxicity is wrong. Of course, there's also the player experience, which we will go to you, Alan, in terms of how bad it can be when it and defining what toxicity is and what players experience when they're playing these different online games. I know it varies from game to game, but could you touch upon that for a bit?
I think when it comes to like an anecdotal kind of perspective, like it really aligns with the actual data. So she said, Caroline said that 40% of gamers avoid games. I'm one of those gamers where I come home from work and I want to play a game, and then there is no way on God's green earth I'm ever actually gonna entertain a game that's like known for being toxic. Like I've just had like a 9 hour day. I'm not gonna come home and try and entertain that kind of toxicity in my life. And I think I represent the majority of gamers who game for the satisfaction of like for positivity. So I'm not gonna like entertain that kind of like negativity in its entirety. So I'm not surprised by that. The 40% of gamers just avoiding games altogether and like making sure the ban hammer is strong on the kind of interactions they want to face day to day. So to me, it's a no-brainer, and I like the fact that we are also tackling this because a lot of policies are from a money perspective for a lot of businesses. So I'm glad that we're in this unique position where the right thing to do and the right business move to do, like Caroline was saying, is to actually like tackle this. And it's literally textbook win-win. So
Definitely very true in terms of games that are too toxic and what you want to do with your day. You don't want to be in a toxic environment. If that was a workspace, you would never accept such a thing. But I really want to go into understanding toxic behavior in gaming and what that encompasses. Michael, if you could help us out with that.
Absolutely. I mean, personally, I look at it from more of a linguistic perspective, how people are communicating with one another and sort of different types of categories, whether we're talking about sexual harassment, threats. I don't believe that profanity is inherently toxic. I'm a big fan of stopping abuse without censorship, as I'm very fond of profanity in terms of encouragement and enthusiasm. And I think there's many different lines to draw, in terms of what's toxic and what's actually illegal or just plain wrong. But yeah, I mean, that's my stance.
No, I completely agree with you. There's different levels to toxicity. If any of you have anything else more to touch upon that
I
in
do. I
terms
think sorry,
of,
Anzi, Annabelle. I do. I agree with Michael, but I do think there needs to be like he said in the kind of linguistic sense, I do think like there needs to be like a dictionary, like a what do these terms actually mean, and like how can we use them to try and reshape and restructure the argument to make sure it's succinct and it's concise, because a lot of times most of the time we when we talk in like gamer talk, a lot of people on the outside won't necessarily understand what we mean by like griefing or like trolling. But okay, recently those kinds of words have trickled into like the common everyday language, but I do think that when it comes to like the definition of what these words actually mean, because me and Michael talking about it previously, I do think that needs to be like a more concrete definitions of what it means, more like, is this an umbrella term, is this like a specific terminology, and I think that needs to be ironed out, so when we move forward we'll be able to like really like anything structured will have a longer shelf life than anything that's more nebulous, if that makes sense.
And
I
honestly, I'm sorry, please go ahead.
oh no, I was going to say, please, no, you go ahead. If anyone had anything else to add, and you did. So
Absolutely. I think the Fair Play Alliance does an excellent job of sort of defining everything, and they use the umbrella term disruptive behavior, which is great because then, whether we're talking about people cheating, people trolling, people just being generally disruptive. If people are piled up somewhere, everyone's trying to go, they can't pass through. I mean, there are tons of different examples. And even in a certain context, real money trading. But everyone has different policies, different community standards. So at the end of the day, it's really about the different communities.
no, I completely agree. And speaking of policies, we've spoken about the problem, which is the toxicity in gaming. And now I feel like whenever speaking about a problem, I always want to say, well, these are some of the solutions that can be offered, that are available, that are around, and how we can implement AI, human, of course, human, how we can implement AI and human guidance in terms of, because this is a very big issue, and funneling it into something that's bite-sized and easy to sort of tackle. And so Carolyn, I will go with you in terms of how can we tackle this mammoth problem?
Yeah, so wow. Yeah, so I think first it's important to acknowledge that this is a human problem that really requires a human solution. And I think what Alan touched on earlier about being really clear about what we're talking about when we say certain words is extremely important, because when we talk about implementing AI or machine learning solutions, they're only as good as their training it is. And so we need to be clear ourselves on what is acceptable behavior, what are the social norms that we want to promote, so that when we train these solutions to, go out and make decisions about, player sanctions and things like that, they need to be trained properly, and we need to be confident that they're making decisions that a human would make in those cases. And I think it can feel like an uncomfortable problem or a more difficult problem because there is, I think the need for human judgment is never going to be removed from this equation. There will always be times when even humans disagree on whether or not a situation was toxic or what the appropriate sanction should be for inappropriate behavior. And I think in these cases, it's really important that we listen to each other. Maybe not always try to force something that's very cut and dry, because these situations aren't always going to be cut and dry. People respond differently depending on your own background, your own experiences. People respond very differently to the same situation in some cases. So yeah, the training is really key. And I think some areas where AI can be beneficial, or automated solutions, whatever the underlying technology is, automated solutions can be helpful if we think about it from the perspective of the targeted user. I think there's a couple of things that can be challenges. One is the burden to report toxic behavior. And we do see in games that the number of player reports that are received is just a tiny fraction of the total toxic events that are occurring in a particular game. I mean, it's as low as 1% sometimes that we see reports being filed, or sometimes there's not even a reporting system. I think generally it's better now. That's one thing that I've seen improve over time in the industry, is like better, more streamlined reporting systems. But still, as someone who is targeted, receiving abusive behavior, the burden then to stop your game, report, that's just adding insult to injury. And then on top of that, having to wait a really long time or receive no response at all to your report is like a third way that people are then impacted by this toxicity that they're receiving. So the more that we can speed up that process and also proactively prevent toxicity and stop toxicity happening without the impacted user having to take action, and just like protect our communities proactively, I think that's an area where AI can really be beneficial. But again, it's only as good as the training. It's not a set it and forget it solution. And there needs to be also proper oversight and auditing to make sure that the decisions that are being made are in line with what a human would do in those situations.
I think you're completely right. Definitely transparency is key as to what's happening and how that, the process goes if you report, or if it's an automated process where the machine learns something, hears something, and then automatically reports it for you. I think people need to be aware of that sort of thing. And I think Alan or Michael, if you guys want to add to this,
I do.
I'm keen to hear from either of you.
I
Go
think
on,
it's
Alan.
also an aspect of, like, historically speaking, it's been one of two. It's, in my experience, it's been two things where a lot of people feel that the toxicity is like inherently in the DNA of gaming, so they don't even try and attempt to even try and like report it. And then the second part, which Caroline touched on, was just the report system. It feels like you're just throwing a paper airplane into a black hole, and then just nothing comes of it. So it's like, why should I even bother in that kind of regard? So there needs to be, if we want to try and change that kind of attitude, it needs to come from a two-pronged front, where we need to say that toxicity isn't inherent in gaming. Because it's really weird, because for me, gaming can be the most gatekeeping, like toxic, and also the most welcoming and fun place all at the same time. So getting people to understand that toxicity is not part of the DNA is one thing. And then also, like you said, the transparency and the accountability of, like, it's going to take like a marketing push kind of thing, where we have to say that, you know what, these new systems that we're now implementing, let's try and like put some faith in them, and then see where it goes from there. And it starts with the users then saying, okay, historically this system never worked, this reporting system never worked, let's then now try this new reporting system and see if we can get anywhere. So I do think that has to be tackled on two different fronts when it comes to the utilization of AI, when it comes to the prevention of toxic behavior online.
That's definitely true. Michael, I see you nodding along. Do you have something to
Yeah, I
add, I'm sure?
know. I mean, I agree on so many levels, and just the idea of a feedback loop between player and the moderator, knowing that, an investigation has taken place, understanding, the outcome of that investigation, and also, on the other side, like the importance of education, the user understanding, exactly how they've broken the community standards, how and why they're going to be punished if that's, part of the guidelines, and also human moderation, right? I feel like this notion of using AI, leveraging it as a tool in order to sort of clean up all the garbage, all the nonsense, so that moderators don't have to go through it. Instead, they can respond to the things that are really, really crucial, that require an elevated response.
I like that a lot. It sounds like, sorry to bring my legal background, but it feels like case law where the human makes the judgment, and then the AI, when it sees a similar case, and then like it's able to react to that certain judgment. But at the end of the day, it's us making certain like rules and regulations in place, and then having like the AI foot soldiers go in and say that, start like churning out and clearing out the entire like backlog of things that are occurring. So I really like
And
that kind of.
even you talking about like a marketing push, right? And I really enjoy this because if we can really educate gamers and just simply try to encourage them to if they see something wrong, they see something somebody that's not being kind to others, simply just stepping in and being as kind as possible and reminding them, hey, there's another person behind that screen. That's not an NPC you're talking to. That's a human being with complex thoughts and emotions. And, I don't know what kind of day you're having. You don't know what kind of day they're having, that type of thing. Just reminding people like that's another human.
No, I completely agree with that. And definitely the marketing push, because there's still a lot of mistrust over will this work? Will this, there's always a new system of reporting that people don't always use because it's the same old system. And in terms of being active, proactive with when you see something, as opposed to, oh, this thing is happening, you just record it or you just stay silent. I think it's better when people take an active approach rather than a passive approach, which comes on to our next point, is fostering welcoming gaming environments. For the most part, gaming has always been something that I have found really welcoming, and that's what we want where it to stay. So I want us to talk about how that could also help in terms of tackling toxicity, the gaming side. Alan, I'll come to you.
I think that a lot of moderation is it to a lot of gamers in certain sections. It feels like a dirty word where it's like they feel like it's an attack on like I want to say what I want or do what I want, and it's like, to me, I don't know whether I it's Caroline mentioned it earlier, where it's kind of a toss up about how far do we go with this kind of thing? Like what kind of behavior do we want to enforce behavior? Do we want to try and like adjust behavior? Like what do we want to occur in our gaming communities? And it's really up to the gaming publishers and the gaming developers as well. So I'm always, I wouldn't say apprehensive. I'm always like in two minds about what what do I want to see from a gaming community that's really fostering positivity, and is it something that can be achieved through the just solely moderation? So I'm always in two minds about that, if that answers your question. But I'm
Um,
glad that, sorry, go on.
no, please land.
No, because we've also created, I'm part of Melanin Gamers, and we also created a community that's like, we're positive, we play different games and that kind of thing. So I don't know, maybe it's like my Xbox 360 kind of live era days where I never thought I could see this kind of positivity within the gaming industry, because I just assumed that was just part of gaming. So I'm a cautious optimist when it comes to trying to adjust the gaming society, gaming industry through community involvement for the better, even though I've seen that it can work, if that makes sense.
Most definitely. And I think Michael touched upon that early when he mentioned education, and letting people know this in this community, this is how we behave. And there is um, responsibility from publishers. And I think, Michael, you also mentioned Fair Play Alliance as well. You want to touch upon that?
Absolutely, and something specific actually. West Hart from Riot. A few years ago, I heard him say that, you know, in terms of toxicity and, you know, solving these issues, it's not as simple as just removing the bad. You also have to amplify the good, amplify the positive aspects of community, whether that's, you know, through achievements, rewards, banners, or incentivizing it, you know, with in-game currency. You know, if people are offering, you know, loot, power leveling, like anything like that. I mean, it can differ from game to game, but recognizing these things and acknowledging the people that are really boosting the community, I think that's incredibly important.
Agreed.
I think that's very important. Do positive reinforcement always works in terms of do good and you get good things. And I think that leads perfectly onto enhancing player satisfaction and retention, and people actually staying and, oh, I'm being rewarded if I'm being good. Do good, I'm being punished, I'm being bad. Do less bad kind of thing. And so, Michael, if I can come back to you again on that point.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think from many different perspectives, whether we're talking about, you know, emotional, psychological, really considering, like, is it easier to be a jerk to someone, or is it easier to be nice to someone? I mean, positivity breeds just like negativity, and yeah, I mean, I think it's that simple. It's so much easier to be nice, and you know, most of us game for the same reason. Like we finish work for the day, we work out, whatever, and then we want to get our escape. We want to get our flow state and have fun with one another. You know, collaborate and slay gnarly internet dragons. I mean, that's what it's about.
Very true.
pixels.
Carolyn, do you have, I feel like I haven't come to you for a little bit. Do you have anything
No,
to add?
I'm strongly agreeing. Yeah, and I think kind of on the topic of that escape feeling, I think a really strong set of community guidelines, when it's really well integrated into even like the game lore, can increase player immersion if you feel like the way that you're acting in the game is like in line with your character, and like kind of having that be like fully integrated into the whole experience, I think is another way that can really encourage people to like abide by a kind of code of conduct that's expected in a particular game world.
I really
completely
love that.
agree. I love that too. That's such a great, I didn't even think about that. It's so true.
There were, sorry, I got like 20 seconds. There was a game, I just can't remember it. It was a MOBA that was like really, really good at like handling that kind of toxicity, where it was like incorporated from the jump from the game design, like to like include that kind of positivity and like just like communication between your teammates and being like respectful. And it translated in game like to give you currencies and like you can level up quicker. So it really incentivized um being respectful, being polite, like just like treating people like humans. And people really took to that. And I think it crashed and burned because I think another game came out like right after it. But like if we could like somehow like extract the nectar from that game and like just inject it into every other game, I really think it could be like we'll be onto something when it comes to that. Because yeah, I really do agree with what Caroline said.
And I see personally, I see a lot of power in you know, user training models, like on the education side, you know, letting people know why what they did was wrong and how it violates community standards. But taking that a step further, you know, using popular or notable heroes or villains from a franchise, from a brand, to actually, you know, educate the user, whether it's, you know, simple dialogue boxes or through, you know, the voice actor. I think there's something unique and special in that.
Yeah, that's a brilliant idea. I certainly would listen to if the character from a game I love told me to do something. I'm like, yes, of course I will. I'll follow you to that mission.
Especially a villain. Like, oh, my bad, dude.
I think they could have so much fun with that, to be quite honest with you, for a positive reason. But I think we have reached the end of our discussion. And if there's anything you guys want to add, please do let me know. But I think the key takeaways with this is definitely fostering positive communities, making sure that we're taking an active approach when we see something, we say it, and also the responsibility and transparency of publishers and organizations to ensure that their games are safe. and also the impact and importance of human touch, but also having AI as a tool, not overtaking, to help us as an aid when it comes to dismantling toxicity. But it's more than just dismantling toxicity, it's also creating positive, as you said, Michael, it's not just getting rid of the bad, it's promoting the good. Let's make better memories. Let's have a better time in the gaming space that we all love, and grow it into a space that we can stay. So thank you guys for this. If you guys want to go around again, the round table, to let everyone know where they can find you and what we do as well. Alan.
Cool. I'm from Melanin Gamers. I don't really stream as much as I used to, but I could be persuaded into streaming. So I'm not gonna lie to you guys. And yeah, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and also on our website, Melanin Gamers. So yeah.
Carolyn?
Yeah, ggwp.com, especially if you're a developer making a game, talk to us. Earlier is better. Yeah, that's it for me.
Perfect. Michael?
So first, I definitely want to thank Melanin Gamers and GGWP for inviting me to such an important conversation. I most certainly support and love y'all. Thank you very, very much. If anyone would like to find me, LinkedIn is my place. I love it. Michael Latt. I am the only one in the universe with my name. No big deal. Also, would love to play some Baldur's Gate 3 with folks. Please hit me up.
Oh, I got you, brother. I got you.
Perfect. And thank you everyone for watching. Remember, it's Stop Cyberbullying Day, so let's spread some joy. And in a world where you can be anything, be kind. Thank you very much.
Thank you.